somehow every step of the way where you would think things would be protected through the courts, he got away with everything and looked good doing it.
I heard the prosecutor then say to the judge, I just want it reflected in the record that the defendant said, fuck you. And I mean, my jaw just dropped.
About every system that is intended to catch bad lawyers has failed.
Welcome to Predator in Plain Sight, exposing Tom Girardi. I'm Chris Hansen. This is the third episode in our three-part documentary that offers a rare look into the whole criminal saga of attorney Tom Girardi. I'm joined by Kimberly Archie, noted legal consultant and victims advocate. You may have seen Kimberly in the two Hulu documentaries on the case, The Housewife and The Hustler 1 and 2. Kimberly's direct involvement with Tom Girardi's cases began when she worked alongside him before allegations against him surfaced. With her unique perspective and expertise, Kimberly has been instrumental in guiding victims through the intricate legal process required to seek their rightful compensation and justice, particularly those affected by Girardi misdeeds. Kimberly, it's great having you alongside to share your unique perspective.
Yeah, this, Chris, is definitely more than just a story to me. And we've been living it, day to day, particularly the last 5 years. And I appreciate you having me along.
It's all consuming, really, for you.
It is all consuming 24/7. There's no break from this until it's over.
And it's important to note that Kimberly will be testifying in Tom Girardi's criminal trial, which begins on August 6th in Los Angeles. How do you feel about taking the witness stand, Kimberly?
It's definitely nerve-wracking to take the witness stand. It feels like a lot of pressure after all these years of the victims being victimized. I don't want them to face another loss. They deserve justice, finally.
I've been live in front of millions of viewers many, many times over the years, but there's something about testifying in court that still makes me anxious.
Yeah, I don't think there's any real way to prepare for it to take that anxiety away because of the level of importance and what is on the line.
Well, with that being said, we will be offering daily trial updates once the trial begins, so be sure to take a moment now and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out. In this final episode before the trial, we take a deep dive with our experts and the victims themselves as they prepare for what's to come in the courtroom. Unravel the complexities of Girardi's incompetency defense, explore the role of his ex-wife Erika Jayne, and hear the profound impact of Girardi's alleged misdeeds on the lives of his victims. Stay with Kimberly and me as we navigate the intricate details of the events that led to one of the most notorious cases in recent legal history.
Talk to me about that. Why hide the fact that you're in a broken marriage?
All marriages are complex. People are complex. There were good times, there were bad times. You're talking about 2 decades of a marriage.
Okay.
So no one's marriage is perfect.
Do you think you went far in the other direction to protect him on this show?
I think that I highlighted the best of him.
Why didn't you leave Tom sooner?
Where was I going?
Where weren't you going? You're on a hit TV show. You have a career.
Hold on. I was not in control of my finances. I walk out with 2 credit cards. They get cut. Am I gonna call you? Am I gonna call you? Who am I gonna go call?
I know what you make on this show. It ain't bad.
I gave every paycheck to my husband.
Oh, wow.
So
Why?
crazy to me.
Forever?
Why?
Since you've been making money?
Yes. Oh, I've handed every paycheck I've ever made over.
Would you say you stayed with him for the money and the
No,
security?
I stayed because I had no access.
Did you feel you were held captive?
I'll say this. I was 27 when I went in.
Cocktail
He was
waitress.
60. The power balance is way out of whack. I trusted this man.
Knowing what you know now, would you have still married Tom?
I'm at a place where I don't quite know who I was married to. because there are good parts and there are bad parts. And I'm trying to, much like everyone else around me, trying to figure out what's the happened in the law firm and in my personal life and the things that I'm finding out. There are moments I am overwhelmed, I am sad, I am heartbroken, and then I am bewildered, truly, where I'm like, what was real? How about that?
Do you think Tom loved you?
I do. I think he loved me, and then I think things happened.
What
to
happened?
him. I think he changed. I think we all change, like marriages change.
Did you love him?
I did, and I think you can see it.
Social media journalist Kiki Monique notes that her friends in the legal field were skeptical from the very beginning about the source of Girardi's wealth.
Now, I will say, when this case came up, and I would just talk about it with friends who don't really watch reality TV, but are interested in just the stories I tell, the first thing they always would say is, well, he couldn't have been making that much money. He was just a lawyer. And I kept being like, but he was a celebrity lawyer. And they were like, it just doesn't make sense. He doesn't. So even people who didn't pay attention thought it was very odd that this lawyer, no matter how famous and how many cases he had won, had multiple private jets and was able to take care of a wife that had a $40,000 a month glam team. Like it didn't add up for them. But I think I had been sort of living in this world of reality where it's like, well, this is what all people do, right?
Well, unfortunately, what Erika has done since this whole scandal blew open has not just influenced the media narrative, it's dominated the media narrative.
This is Brandon Lowry, investigative reporter for Law 360, a key resource for legal news and analysis.
And that's a tragedy because everybody who I talk to about this who is not a lawyer, and hell, half the lawyers I talk to will ask me, so what do you think Erika knew? And my response is always, who gives a damn what Erika knew? Like, it doesn't matter what Erika knew. Erika was a peripheral figure in all of this. She was not that important beyond bringing people to Tom. She didn't owe a duty to any of these people. Tom did, and the lawyers at his firm did. She didn't. So we don't rely, the system does not rely on Erika Girardi to report misconduct, to recognize misconduct and report it.
I think that she knew there was something wrong long before the world did, because I'm sorry, she is a very savvy woman. She is very intelligent, and woman's intuition is a very real thing. And I think that she kind of knew, but she probably was in denial. But even if you watch the show, right, when all of this is playing out, there was a season there where she was a mess. You could see it in her face. She even admitted she was falling asleep, wasted, waking up with Taco Bell wrappers around her. That is the sign of someone who is clearly in depression and probably in denial because they know something is very wrong. So I think that she knows. It's just hard to say those words, especially when, again, there's still fingers pointed at you and you're scared.
Erika definitely plays a huge role in how she makes Tom look in the media.
Hey, Chris, this is Kathy Rogomez, and she's a victim of Girardi and my lifelong friend. And like the rest of us, she thinks that Erika's only making things worse.
Her role is to make everybody believe how incompetent he is. I mean, she says it all the time and refers to that he doesn't know what's going on. He's incompetent. He can't be held accountable for. She doesn't even seem angry at him. So she's really flipped it around as far as when we first were hearing about why she was going to divorce him was because he was cheating. But you don't see that. She's trying to show that doesn't know what's going on.
I don't think Tom is at the top of his game. I don't think that he is doing well mentally, but I also don't think that he is just completely lost either. I think Tom is still there. He's just not as sharp as he used to be. But with Erika, again, the tragedy is that she's dominating the discussion here. And she says something and it's a headline. The victims say something and maybe sometimes it's a headline, right? And why do we care so much about what Erika Girardi thinks? And, you know, she's not an expert. You know, I'm not even sure that she completed high school. She is not a lawyer. She's not accused of actually being involved in any of this. The only thing she can speak to is her relationship with her husband, which was not probably all that great, really, from the sound of things. You know, she used his money. She built a career for herself. Why do we want to know more from her? What more is there to know from her? You know, I think if people spent a little bit less time listening to Erika Girardi and a little bit more time listening to Tom Girardi, listening to the prosecutors, listening even to what the defense is claiming, listening to what other lawyers have said since then and done since then, things would actually change.
Brandon Lowry believes paying too much attention to Erika could result in keeping things the way they are without any real change in the system.
And that more people, a lot of the people who are listening to Erika and interested in Erika, are going to be robbed. They're going to be robbed blind by attorneys doing bad things, doing the exact same thing that Tom Girardi has done, using the same roadmap, the same methods and everything, because everybody's focusing on Erika and not on how this is actually working.
It's brilliant to say you're not competent and now you can't stand trial.
This is David Yontef, host of the Behind the Velvet Rope podcast. David's known for his expertise on the Real Housewives series.
Yeah, you're the right age to have everyone believe that and everything else. So, you know, I feel like I wasn't shocked because I think he is competent, but I was shocked that we got here so quickly and that there's really going to be a trial. I guess I really just thought it was going to be dragged out way longer, that there was going to be some other trick up his sleeve and that we were never going to get to the, like, you're actually competent to stand trial. Like, that day to me was so far off. But I really think, I think the whole thing was set in motion. I've talked about this on my show too. I think Tom is just he's in control of it all. Now he's losing control and the law has caught up. But I think even in when he was going to get caught, because the thing is, this is what I think. I think if you're doing something bad that you shouldn't be doing, I don't even think it's arrogance. I think you really believe in your mind that you're smarter than the person. I really think this whole plan was set in motion by Tom. When it was too late, he's like, oh God, okay, here's what we have to do. And we have to do this, and we're never going to speak again. And I don't know. That's just my whole mindset. And so I think he had this plan in motion of, I'm going to claim incompetence. And that's really what I think. I think he had his whole exit strategy. He's too good a lawyer not to. That's really what I think.
Tom Girardi looked frail as he walked into the federal courthouse. The famous attorney is accused of wire fraud and allegedly embezzling $15 million from his clients. The question is, does he suffer from dementia or is he faking it to avoid prosecution? Nima Rumani is a former federal prosecutor.
The prosecution is arguing that this is all fabricated, and in fact, Girardi was going to work, participating in depositions, and even negotiating with his lenders shortly before the investigation and the indictment were made public.
Today, the government brought in a neuropsychologist who believes he is competent to stand trial and claims he was straightforward, no sign of exaggeration. The defense attacked her credibility, claiming that her practice is not focused on evaluating older adults or their capacity.
Social media journalist Kiki Monique was taken aback at Girardi's competency hearing, particularly when she heard him hurl a defiant expletive at a prosecutor, a moment that no doubt played a key role in determining his competence to stand trial.
So it's kind of just exciting to watch this man who is claiming to have dementia, show up to the courthouse in slippers, in pants that are too big, in a suit jacket that's too big. It's like you almost feel like you're watching an act and you're trying to pick apart what is real and what's not. So it's like I'm almost in my own reality show. it very much felt like he was paying attention to everything that was happening, which I thought was interesting because, I don't know a lot about dementia, but I just thought over time he might get agitated or bored or not want to be there anymore. But it seemed like he was very involved. And, obviously hearing from the experts, we have experts on both sides sort of laying out their case for, why he is competent or why he's not competent, and getting to learn just sort of the exercises they went through and, the different conversations they had with him was really enlightening and interesting, just to also see how different experts sort of handle this sort of thing. I didn't hear him say it, but I heard the prosecutor then say to the judge, I just want it reflected in the record that, the defendant said, fuck you. And I mean, my jaw just dropped. It really felt like, is this really happening? Is this real life? And it obviously, I don't think helped his case.
A judge ruled Girardi is competent to stand trial, a big blow to his legal team, who argued Girardi is in serious mental decline.
Judge Staten held an evidentiary hearing in this case where she heard from over a dozen witnesses, which included people that know Girardi, but also neurological experts. And it's an incredible difficult thing for a judge to do because she has to sort through the scientific evidence and testimony and make a decision. But we'll see that once the decision is unsealed. Right now, it's sealed so the parties can say, hey, let's keep back some of this sensitive medical information.
Girardi is accused of stealing millions from some of his most vulnerable clients. Prosecutors say families of the victims of the 2018 Lion Air crash in Indonesia are among those he stole from. Girardi's attorney claims the once prominent lawyer is a shell of his former self and that he suffers from Alzheimer's disease. He's now in the memory care unit of a nursing home. Prosecutors claim he is exaggerating.
Kiki wasn't surprised at all to see that, Erika was absent from Girardi's competency hearing, and it would have turned it into a way bigger spectacle had she attended.
That didn't surprise me because I feel like if she had shown up, it would have been even more of a circus because, again, a lot of this case, people have been focused on her because she is the celebrity. I think that her lawyers probably advised her it wouldn't be the best thing because she is still intertwined in other cases in this. So even though he did this horrible thing, and she is wrapped up in it, I think underneath it still wants to protect him.
Yeah, Chris, Kathy was outraged watching Erika lavish herself with extravagant expenses on the show, and she was painfully aware that the funds were siphoned from her own settlement money.
Yeah, it wasn't easy. And that too is a big part of his collapse, was the fact that she got on that show and it stepped things up for them. I mean, she spent millions of dollars on the show as we watched, which, wasn't good. And you're right, all the attorneys were upset over that. So they were all, I think, stealing a little bit more and trying to get more out of the law firm that they could because they could see that all the money was going on Erika. And then I think Chris Camone actually got even more greedy too, watching all the money going by. So then he took some, too many people were stealing from the same pot. I can't believe it lasted as long as it did though.
Josie Hernandez, one of Girardi's victims, is also critical of Erika's characterization of her and fellow victims as merely alleged victims.
I was disgusted, actually. I was really disgusted for her to make that type of statement on the air for millions of people to watch. Not only shows her as an uncompassionate, heartless person, but she literally is calling us liars. She called us liars, and among other things that I feel that she thought of us, I think that it was like out of sight, out of mind for her. Really, I don't have to deal with these people on a day-to-day basis. Their issues have nothing to do with me. I'm just going to live my happy life and move forward. That's really how I felt. I felt like it didn't mean a thing to her.
Kimberly, how did this meeting come about between you, Erika, and the victims, the one that was in Hustler and Housewife 2?
So there's this part in the Real Housewives show where Erika is talking to the other ladies on the show and calls the victims alleged. And it was really upsetting to the victims. And I got a lot of calls. They were wanting to hire an attorney to look at possible defamation against her and even NBC. And after thinking about it, it's like, the last thing we needed were more lawyers involved in the mix. And so I got this idea one day that I should just call up Erika's lawyers and talk to them and see if I could get them to get Erika to meet with the victims and apologize to the victims for calling them liars when truly they were not liars and it was not alleged. After 11 months of going back and forth with Erika's lawyers, I had an event coming up to honor my son who passed away, who was also a Girardi client who never got justice. So I just off the cuff sent a link to the event to one of her lawyers, thinking they'd donate or something to the charity involved in the program. And instead, they contacted me and asked if Erika could come. So that just sort of set off the chain of events. So in the middle of this big whoop-de-doo that we were trying to do, Erika decides she wants to come and sit down with the victims. And I already had media coverage for the event because a bunch of the Girardi case victims who I got to know wanted to do something nice to thank me for all my help, and they were coming to volunteer at the event. So it was kind of crazy that they asked because there were already going to be victims there, including Kathy Gomez and Josie Hernandez, who were two of the four victims in Girardi's indictment. So it really was kind of a perfect time to do this, other than being a big pain in the ass to me. And so with the media already being there, we went ahead and, filmed it and did the meeting, and definitely didn't turn out the way we hoped it would.
It just goes to show how the victims were. All of us that were sitting there at the table, we went in with an open mind, an open heart, giving her the benefit of the doubt, willing to listen to her, even after she's like slapping us back, saying she doesn't know who we are. She doesn't know our story. She doesn't know what happened. She doesn't know how much was stolen. She doesn't know anything, nor does she care to know. Because I know that Kim tried to offer and extend all the information on each one of us so that she doesn't go in empty-handed and look stupid. But she didn't give a shit about that. She didn't care. And it was just as simple as looking at her face to see how much disregard she really had for us.
I don't know if I regret the meeting with Erika. It was very disappointing, and I do regret the time that we took to meet with her, and we spent like an hour and a half talking with her, and it really was a waste of time. The only good thing out of it is that we know that she's not someone we want to be connected to in any way. I thought she was there to apologize or just to, connect with us, but instead she just, it didn't seem, she made promises she didn't keep, and it just didn't seem beneficial at all.
Investigative reporter Brandon Lowry points to systemic failures as the reason Girardi was able to perpetuate his scam unchecked for so long.
Well, I'm sighing because I just don't know where to start. Just about every system that is intended to catch bad lawyers has failed. Like, that's what this story is about. You could say it's about Tom Girardi. You could, but I hope you wouldn't say it's about Erika Girardi. But if you want to say that it's about the victims, then it also has to be about the systems that failed them, the things that were supposed to be protecting them that did not do so. Some of it may have been because of incompetence. Some of it may have been because of just loopholes and neglect, right? And some of it definitely appears to be more sinister than that. There are people who were friends of Tom Girardi. This would be like if a mob boss just happened to be friends with all the cops. They happen to be friends with all the FBI agents and throw parties for them and, be the godfather to their children and stuff. I think that there's a number of things, and they all combined to just make it very uncomfortable to go after Tom Girardi for people who wanted to or may have wanted to. So you have the State Bar of California, which was basically compromised and corrupted, and that's something that they'll admit. There are the judges that oversee cases who were either friends with Tom, were appointed by Tom, or Tom contributed to their appointment because he was on a committee that helped to select judges in California, and helped to select judges on the federal bench as well, using his connections. He was the kingmaker, right? And it was these kings were supposed to be taking him down, but he's the kingmaker. So that's not going to work either. Then he had a lot of friends. He had a lot of money. He had a reputation for being just a brawler, and he had a lot more money than most attorneys who represent victims of legal malpractice have. So a lot of times people would go to a lawyer. They'd say, oh my gosh, I think Tom Girardi ripped me off. And they'd take it to a legal malpractice lawyer. And the legal malpractice lawyer, if they're not friends with Tom Girardi, they'd look at how much money that, may have been taken, and maybe a couple $100,000, let's say. And then they'd think, okay, well, if I win, best case scenario for me is I'll get about a third of that. So maybe I'll get like $50,000 or $60,000. How much am I going to have to spend to go after Tom Girardi? It's going to be more than $50,000 or $60,000, and it's a lot of time. And what if the judge likes Tom Girardi? I don't want to make an enemy. What if Tom Girardi gets one of his friends at the State Bar to investigate me? It was not worth it. So Tom would steal. He had thousands and thousands of clients, and stealing $200,000 from a client might sound awful, and it might sound like a big deal and like something must happen. It didn't happen.
When delving into the Girardi case and his manipulation of settlements, it's critical to understand the difference between class action and mass tort cases. It might get a bit technical, but listening to Brandon's explanation will clarify how these distinctions played a role in concealing the funds.
Now, people think that anytime a bunch of people sue a company over something the company did wrong, it's a class action. I mean, that's what I thought before I started working in this field, or reporting more in this field. But there's also a mass tort. And what that is, instead of a class action where everybody sues collectively as one big group, a mass tort is where everybody keeps their own cases. So it's not 1,000 people suing as one, it's 1,000 people suing as 1,000 people in one court. And that means that every single individual person, they have their own case and they have their own facts, and they are supposed to agree to their own settlement. The problem is that Tom Girardi and other lawyers, they started treating mass torts like class actions. Now, with a class action, when you win, let's say, everything is on the table. It's all public. Everybody knows how much everybody else is getting, how much the entire group is getting, how it's being distributed, and even a judge has to sign off on that and look at it and make sure it's fair. With a mass tort, because everybody has their own case, everybody's separate, nobody knows what anybody else is getting. So what this allowed Tom to do was say, hey, everybody, we're going to settle this collectively for $50 million. Doesn't that sound great? And they'll agree. And then they say, okay, so now we have our $50 million, we're going to split it up between you people through a secret process with a private judge. And none of these people are going to know in the end how much any of the other people got. So how do they know that the sum adds up? They can't. And Tom was sued several times over this, and appellate courts sided with Tom every time. They said, well, these people should have known that something was wrong the moment that they got their settlement check, and they had 1 year from that point to discover that they had been defrauded and sue for it, and find a lawyer and sue for it. And that just, it's a lot to ask of someone who, to figure out what their lawyer did and how, and find a lawyer who will represent them, especially when they don't know. They'd have to poll all their other fellow plaintiffs in the mass tort. So it took me a long time to explain that. You can only imagine. I mean, this is not something that people tend to know, and it's so complicated. And the reason it's so, and that's the reason it's not, nobody's doing anything about it, because it's so complicated. It's you can't put that in a pamphlet.
So Josie's case is kind of unique, Chris, and that, it's one of the 4 cases that directly contributed to Tom's indictment. Josie explains what really kept her going when most people would have given up.
It's not easy. This whole thing caused a divorce for me. Now I'm finding that I need to just build my life back up again, pick up all the pieces. But I can't give up. Number one, because of you, Kim, because you keep giving me the energy and the hope that eventually we're going to get justice and we're going to be compensated for all of the BS that we went through with this man and this whole scandal, and hopefully this will not happen again to anybody else. That's my hope. So I just hope that eventually we get everybody in jail.
Plaintiff attorneys use what they call the reptile theory to influence jurors and potentially secure larger settlement amounts. Brandon Lowry explains.
Reptile theory, basically, that's when the lawyers put their cases and their arguments together to scare jurors, to turn on their reptile brain and make it so they're not processing, they're not thinking about justice. They're thinking about fear and revenge and anger. This whole thing is all about not being just, It's about not being our higher selves. It's about getting all of those jurors in that box to think like lizards. I mean, if you are a good and ethical person, how could you make peace with that? No, I want everybody, I'm going to scare everybody until they devolve into lizards, scared little lizards. Look at all those scared little lizards in that box. They're going to give me a lot of money. That's what you have to be thinking. I mean, it's insane. There's a toxic culture in the plaintiff's bar.
Kiki finds it noticeably odd that Aaron Brockovich hasn't commented on the Girardi case, and especially considering how the movie was so, instrumental in making her famous.
Yeah, I'm not surprised she's distanced herself, but I also don't think people expected her to be intertwined. I mean, obviously, if Aaron used her celebrity, it, for good, maybe it would bring more attention to these sorts of things. But again, I'm not surprised she would want to distance herself from him.
Kimberly, you have to wonder if Tom Girardi never romanced or married Erika Jayne, would all of this have come to light?
I mean, I do think that her being on Bravo has played a role in it for sure, because I think her showing the wealth on TV made the partners that were helping Tom with his crimes really angry and not really fall in line the way they should have. And then I think the attention on the issue has stayed steady because of Erika being on the show in between the bankruptcies and the divorce filings and the criminal indictment. Would people have been paying attention had it not been for Erika being on the show?
And what should people watch for during the trial? And what are you watching for?
I mean, I think the biggest thing about the trial is really to see what, type of defenses Tom's going to try to come up with, when it's pretty cut and dry that the guy stole the money, the people never got the money, and he's the one that was responsible.
And how much did Erika Jayne have to do with spending that missing money?
Well, we just saw a filing just on Friday. For the first time, the prosecutors made note that Erika received $25 million into her LLC to promote her career. So I think Erika's roles in spending the money is well documented. And I think that Brandon makes a good point that she also made Tom relevant again when the Aaron Brockovich stuff was getting kind of stale.
Well, here's what Brandon Lowry says he'll be watching for.
At this point, the only thing that's not super clear is Tom's defense beyond "I had dementia," right? What is it that Tom is going to say in his defense? How is he going to deflect blame? Who is he going to blame? And, he has a co-defendant here in Los Angeles. His name is Chris Camone. And Chris Camone was the chief financial officer for Girardi Keese. And Chris Camone's part in this whole mess is that he managed the funds, and he also appeared to be siphoning money from the firm. So it may have been that he was helping Tom Girardi do some things that shouldn't have been done. It could be that Tom completely trusted him, and that everything may have been okay if Chris Camone hadn't been siphoning so much money away from the firm. The federal prosecutors charged them both because there's so much evidence against both of them. But it looks like Tom may not have known that Chris Camone was doing that. So that could be something that's like a mitigating factor in some of this. But in the end, Tom Girardi, these were his clients. He's the one who had the duty to them. And he should have known what was going on. There are emails where he lied to these clients about their money, and other attorneys at the firm and other people. George Hatcher was involved, all talking about, oh my gosh, Tom's lying in emails again. This reminds me of that other case. It's so gross from top to bottom. I'll just say this. I don't know how far the Chris Camone did it defense will go. And I'm not sure what else he has at this point. And I guess we'll see at the trial.
In this trial, it's also important to understand the difference between Chapter 7 and Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Alan Forsley, attorney for the Rugomez family, will provide a detailed explanation of these key distinctions. Again, it gets a little wonky, but stay with it.
The Chapter 7 case is just a complete liquidation of the debtor's assets. And if a debtor is an individual, he or she can receive a discharge of all debts with certain limitations. So also in a Chapter 7 case, a trustee is appointed to take control and recover the estate assets. And then the trustee then would monetize those assets so he can ultimately make payments to general unsecured creditors of the bankruptcy estate. And payments can range from nothing because the trust doesn't recover anything, or to payments in full, anywhere in between. In contrast, in a Chapter 11, it can either be a liquidation case or it could be a reorganization. In a reorganization, the debtor proposes a plan to pay its liabilities over time and a portion or all of the unsecured claims. The Tom Girardi bankruptcy case, in that case, the Chapter 7 trustee filed an adversary complaint, which is just a complaint in the bankruptcy case, to deny Tom Girardi's discharge. So that is to say, Tom, yes, you've got this bankruptcy case, but because of all your bad acts, you're not going to get your discharge. And on January 24, 2022, the court granted the motion of the trustee to deny Girardi's discharge of all his debts. So he doesn't get his discharge. So that's one thing, very important thing in Tom Girardi's bankruptcy case. The trustee expects to have about $3 million for unsecured claims. There are about 70 claims in total, it's about $239 million of claims. So it looks like claimants are not going to be paid in full in that case. The Girardi Keese bankruptcy case, it's much larger, it's much more complicated. For example, there are 687 claims versus the 70 claims in the Tom Girardi case, and there's about $500 million of claims. At the time of the involuntary filing, the trustee in the Girardi case only had $350,000 in the estate, just a very small amount of money. Since then, however, she's done a really good job. She's been able to recover millions of dollars from contingency fees that were owed Girardi Keese on cases that have settled. She's got a lot of those. And with those monies, she was able to pay all secured claims of the estate, which is wonderful because the secured claims keep accruing interest, unlike the general unsecured claims. And as of January 2024, the trustee was holding about a little over $18 million for administrative and unsecured claims. And the trustee has also filed about 116 lawsuits to recover fraudulent transfers of Girardi Keese money and preferential payments to favored creditors. So those lawsuits will likely bring in more money for the estate, and the trustee is expected to recover more monies from Girardi Keese contingency fees. So that's where we stand on those cases there.
Alan suggested that the likelihood of Girardi victims fully recovering their money is an uphill battle at best.
It doesn't look good for the victims in the Tom Girardi case. And it doesn't look good either for the victims either in the Girardi Keese case. Victims probably feel like they have a special claim because, look, Tom Girardi stole my money. He was my attorney, and he had these fiduciary relationships to me. He was supposed to be loyal to me. But unfortunately, under the Bankruptcy Code, the victim's claims are not treated any differently than a general unsecured claim. So they just get pro rata share just like other general unsecured creditors. So I don't see a lot of money getting paid for the victims in the Girardi Keese case either.
And what do you hope to provide with your testimony, Kimberly, in the trial?
Well, I think that there's really two parts to my testimony in the trial, and that would be my insider information and knowing Tom personally and dealing with him for almost a decade on a regular basis. And then also my involvement in getting Tom to return $10 million of stolen money to the Ragomez family prior to everything blowing up. I mean, I think that alone will probably captivate people that I was able to use Tom's own tactics on him to get him to return $10 million. I mean, who's ever heard a story like that?
Not me, that's for sure. Josie Hernandez is also preparing herself for her turn on the witness stand.
Honestly, I haven't thought about it. I'm trying not to because I get very anxious. And this stems back because of everything that I've gone through. If I think about it too much, I'll just get into my dark place, and I just don't want to go there. I am depending on the DA to prepare me, and I don't want to mess it up. I want to be able to get my point across, to express myself, to give the facts, and tell the truth. And I pray that if he even looks at me, I do wonder about that. If he's going to even look my way, or if he's going to have that dumb, I'm not all there expression that he had the other time that we saw him. Or is he going to really look and have some remorse? I don't know. But honestly, I'm trying to not think of it too much right now because there's so many other things that I need to focus on. But yeah, I am looking forward to it.
The Girardi case marks a significant moment in legal history, highlighting systemic issues within the legal profession. Here's what Brandon Lowry believes needs to change to prevent similar situations from occurring in the future. And it won't be easy.
I don't know that there is a magic bullet for this. It would just have to be a lot because the system is so complicated that once you tweak one thing, other problems come up. One of the big differences between class actions and mass torts is that judges have to approve class action settlements to make sure it's fair. Well, you do that to a mass tort, and that's a lot more work for the judges, right? And we're already running into judicial shortages on and off in different jurisdictions. So do we have to hire more judges? Like, how are we going to do that? So there's just an issue of resources. There's an issue of, privacy. What if, you're suing separately because you don't want everybody to know what you're getting, right? Companies, they want to settle privately too. What if they don't want people to know how much they are spending to settle this mass tort case? There are a lot of people who are, a lot of interested parties have different issues and ideas, but the funny thing is, you look at the people who are at the table making the decisions. You have people for the businesses, for the corporate defendants. You have judges. You have plaintiffs' attorneys. But you don't have the plaintiffs themselves, right? So everybody's assuming that the plaintiffs' attorneys always have their clients or their potential clients' interests at heart. And they're supposed to, but as we can plainly see, that does not happen a lot of the time. If that were the case, there'd be more attorneys taking cases that really seemed like they had the facts on the side, and maybe they didn't have a lot of money at stake or whatever, but they'd heck, they'll do this one. You can't do business like that. It's too competitive. It's too expensive. It is a business, and lawyers are business people. They are not heroic underdogs. Law is a business. Cases are money. And when you walk into the door of a law firm, if you're even allowed to walk in anymore, you are not a person, you are a number. And they'll treat you like a person. They can be very convincing. They'll take the facts of your life and make something that will make jurors cry. And you'll look at that and say, wow, they really, he really gets me, or he really cares. No, they're doing this because they're trained to do it. And maybe for a lot of people, I hope, it's never really going to come into play. But for the people who get sick or get injured and lose everything, running into a lawyer like this, and they're not rare, it can ruin your life. It can ruin your life. So people should be demanding change and learning about how this all works. Because nobody ever plans to hire a plaintiff's lawyer or to have to hire a plaintiff's lawyer. It's something that it's thrown at you. Life throws it at you. It's something that you hope you never need, but you might.
Kimberly, we've reached the end of this episode, and we hope that this discussion, along with parts 1 and 2, has shed light on the complexities of the Tom Girardi case. Remember, starting August 6th, Kimberly and I will be providing daily updates on the trial. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any episodes. Thank you, Kimberly.
It's been a real pleasure, Chris, and I look forward to working together during the trial.
Yeah, I am too. It's super significant and it has a lot of ramifications, so I appreciate your insight. And until then, I'm Chris Hansen. I'll be watching and listening.